What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Tone Nerds. Today we've got a really fun episode. We're going to be taking a look at digital amps. So let's get into it. Alright, so I recently got the Tonex. I am super stoked about.
Big boy.
Yeah, but one thing I think, kind of been doing my research, I've been looking around, I couldn't really find a comparison video to what I had before, which was the Iridium. So I've been working with the Strymon Iridium for a long time, a few years.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
How long were you playing that?
I want to say like 3-4 years, maybe even more.
Longer than
maybe
that.
even more, yeah. So
Been a minute.
I've been rocking with the Iridium as my amplifier at the end of my chain for years. And then I kept seeing the Tonex pop up. It looked really cool, but I was like, but how does it stack up to what I have right now? And that's what we're gonna do today.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, so I got the Iridium on here. We've got the Tonex on here, but then you've recently made the jump to the UA pedals in your digital amp. So we both had Strymon, right? We both had the Iridiums.
Yep.
You went and bought yourself a Ruby, and I'm like, dang, that does sound kind of nice. Maybe I should start looking at stuff. And then I landed on the Tonex. AC30s, we use a bunch of. We kind of landed on that a lot.
Yep.
And so let's see how they kind of stack up and compare to each other.
How does it do an AC30?
Yep.
That's what we want to know.
1 to 1, apples to apples, AC30 all across the board. Just for reference, for the Iridium, I do have a tone factor AC30 loaded in. So this is not the stock AC30.
Got it.
Tone factor does great stuff, so I have that downloaded in. And same thing for the Tonex, I have tone factor capture here. And just for the language of today, the Iridium uses IRs, right, impulse responses, whereas the Tonex kind of uses AI capture, which is a little bit different. So the capture is like a snapshot of whatever the amp was when they recorded it.
Yeah.
So it's slightly different, but
and I think that's a good point, because the bass, treble, mid knobs on the Tonex are not necessarily going to do the same thing the same tone knobs on the AC30 is going to do. Number one, the AC30 doesn't even have a mid knob, but it is, they are implementing their own EQ technology onto this amp. So then that is a little different than the Ruby. The Ruby is basically UA just built a digital circuit of
put it in
an
a box,
AC30 and put it in a box. And so the intent with those is to try to make all the knobs and everything behave as the original amp did, and it does a great job of it.
Because they also have a Ruby plugin, so essentially it's your plugin circuit in the box, I would imagine. Well, let's go ahead and hop into it and see which AC30 you like best. So for today, we've got just a few pedals on here. We got the Protein here. This is our overdrive. We've got like a Noble's ODR1 kind of sound, and then a Blues Breaker. And then here we have the Flint for a little bit of reverb. That's going to be going into our Iridium, and then the Ruby, and then the Tonex. And what kind of guitar are we running?
Yeah, so we got the old Jazzmaster here. Got the American Professional 2 Jazzmaster. I love this guitar. It sounds
fantastic.
So good. It has Curtis Novak pickups in it, so they are upgraded pickups.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, that's what we're working with here.
Nice, and we are running mono coming out of the board. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Let's do the first one.
Okay.
Let's hear old reliable, old faithful.
Old reliable. We'll do a middle pickup start.
Middle
right
pickup.
Down the middle. That's a nice
Yeah,
sound.
that's a nice sound. Yeah.
Okay.
I was a little nervous. I feel like the Iridium holds up a little bit.
Yeah.
You know? Well, let's keep going.
Okay, cool.
Let's see a little bit of reverb.
All right.
Let's do a Blues Breaker sound just a little. let's try the next one. Here's the Ruby.
All right. That's a little just go to the neck here. Oh, that's got some nice chime to it.
There's a little bit of reverb.
Okay.
Okay. A little bit of drive. Now let's try a little bit more gain.
Okay.
So now let's try the Tonex.
Tonex, here we go.
Here's a little bit of reverb.
Okay.
And a little bit of drive. So let's do this. Let's go across the board.
Okay.
We're apples to apples. We'll just click clean, Iridium, Ruby, Tonex. Then we'll do with a little bit of reverb back and forth, and then we'll do the same thing with some drive tones.
All right.
Let's start with the Iridium.
Just a clean tone
Just
here?
clean
Okay.
tone,
Well,
and then we'll just kind of play the same thing across the board. And now to the Ruby. And the Tonex. Those are pretty close, actually.
Yeah, all this is very close.
Yeah, this is actually really close. I was thinking, because the Iridium, I think when we both felt it, kind of like when we both wanted to make the drum, it felt like it was falling behind a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's more in some of the other features. Obviously, like, we're not getting into the room knobs and reverbs and extra cabs and stuff like that. We're just kind of, but I think the impulse response themselves, especially with tone factor, are holding up pretty well.
I know the big thing for me when making my choice to go to the Ruby was like, it wasn't so much what it sounded like, it was what it felt like. The Ruby to me just felt like I was playing through a tube amp. There's something about the sag on it, you know, like that little bit of compression you get from a tube amp.
The way it reacts to
playing dynamics and everything like that. I just felt like that was the thing that sold me on it. I mean, I did like the sound of it better, slightly better too, but to me that wasn't the biggest difference between the two of them.
I think you're right, because when I tried it on your board for the first time, I think that's the first thing I say. It feels more like an amp than the Iridium. So that is something to consider. And then I think kind of between the Ruby and the Tonex, I feel like the Ruby sounds more like amp in the room. Tonex feels more to me like recorded amp, which I kind of like when I'm like, you know, in a mix. I'm like, it sounds, I don't know, there's a little bit more compression. There's a little bit more of like a studio sound, I guess. So this feels more like amp in the room. This feels more like a studio sound.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you hit on a point. In a live mix, I don't think anybody's gonna be able to tell the difference between these two or between these two and a real amp. Quite frankly, I mean, they sound so good. The technology is so good now. I mean, in fact, you know, my wife and I, we went to the Sphere last November to see U2 in the Sphere. Sounded great, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
Come to find out after the fact, I learned that the Edge is actually running
A Ruby.
rubies.
Yeah,
I think
nice.
I have a picture.
Yeah.
I'll have to post it on our page. There's a picture of his rig, and it's like just it's a rack, this giant rack, and then like they open the drawer and there's just like 5 rubies in there.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. There you go.
So it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? If it's good enough for the Edge,
Yeah.
it's good enough for me.
If you can perform at the Sphere in Las Vegas with one of these, and because there's people, oh, it's not the same as a tube amp. Dude, the guys who you listen to are using this.
That's exactly right.
It doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, the only people saying that are the guys walking around in back braces right now.
Yeah, right. Well, let's go ahead and hop into the next thing. That was kind of the clean tone. Let's hear it with just a little bit of reverb. See how the space feels. Clicking on the Ruby. That felt, there's a jump there.
Yeah, I like that Ruby, man. That's nice. All right, let's hear the sound.
We can
go back to Iridium. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's something about it. There's like a. It's that thing that I'm talking about. Like, I mean, number one, I think it may just be the way we have them set, but I really like the sound of the Ruby better.
Yeah.
But it just has like a clarity to it, a pristineness to it that I'm not getting with the Iridium. The Iridium's just a little more abrasive, a little more of an abrasive, which may not be a bad thing, depending on if you want like more of an aggressive tone. I mean,
I always felt that with the Iridium as well. Yeah. It gets grainy.
Yeah.
Which I never love. And
the fidelity is that's a good way of thinking about it.
When you up the gain, it doesn't feel more full, it just feels more grainy to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whereas
the Ruby feels like it gains up an amp. Versus
it's like it's just
it's a very different feel, like you were saying.
Yeah. So advantage Ruby.
Yeah,
so let's
for sure.
Let's tell you what. Let's go between Ruby and Tonex now, since I feel like we got a clear leader between the Ruby
the
and
two.
Iridium.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and hop into these two. So,
the Ruby has defeated the Iridium in this test so far. So let's.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a reason why we made the change. So I feel like we kind of had that going into it. But I did want to see how it stacked up and what the difference was. And I think that I could never put my finger on it before.
Yeah.
But now hearing it's the way it gains up. It gets fizzy over here, whereas this one feels more like a real amp.
Yeah.
It's just, All right, well, let's go ahead and let's hear the Ruby one more time, and then we'll switch over to the Tonex. And then here.
The AC or the AC30, they're all AC30.
Yeah.
The Tonex is a little warmer to me.
Which I tend to run it a little bit warmer too. I mean, we try to get as close to as possible.
Yeah. And I think just the difference in our taste may be coming through with how these are set. So
because I could up the presence or
let me try this. And this again, going back to the EQ, we're gonna have to do something different to this than you
right, because this is not an amp EQ. This is like a post.
Yes,
this is like if I recorded my amp into Logic, and then in Logic I was moving the mids and the treble and stuff. So that's more how this reacts versus this is gonna react more like adjustments on an actual amp.
Yeah, exactly. So just to satisfy my curiosity, because I obviously have the Ruby set this way because I like this. You know, whether you like it more, the audience likes it more, it's kind of beside the point. So, but I like this sound a little more. So, can I replicate this sound on the Tonex?
That's a good question. Let's see. So, one more time. A little bit more big.
Yeah, I think that's
close?
that is very,
And then go into the alternate settings and add a little more in the presence.
Okay, let's flip back now. That's very close. Very
Let's
close.
see if what more presence. I'm not noticing as much now. Let me hear a big chord. Same chords.
It's pretty darn close.
It's
I
pretty
feel like,
close, yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of compression on the Tonex, and I don't know if that's coming from the amp model.
No, yeah, it's off. I think there's coming a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's just whatever the setting is, like you just you know, tube amps compress. Okay.
And just to talk about some of the features, I know we won't get too deep into the features, but what are some of the differences maybe if someone's looking to buy, right? So with the Iridium, you have, you can switch, it comes stock basically between a Fender sound in the round, a chime, which is the AC30 sound, and then punch, which is a Marshall sound. And then you have your basic EQ, and then a room knob. We've talked about before on the channel. Didn't really love it. The room knob, it feels weird to me.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a real room, and it didn't feel like reverb. So it just like, what is it?
Yeah, right. It's like, what is this doing? It's not. Yeah,
I always just had it all the way off.
Right.
And then this one, it's got a few different cabs and stuff like that. You know it a little bit better than I do.
It's got 6. It comes with 3 cabs. If you register the product, you get 3 additional cabs. I typically use the greenback setting. I believe that's what I'm using now. Yeah. It has actually 3 different Vox amps on it. It has the top boost with a brilliant channel, which is whatever most everybody uses unless you're Brian May. And then you have the normal channel one, which is based on a different Vox amp, maybe like a 61 or something like that. And then there's also a vibrato channel as well.
Oh, okay,
so you have the vibrato.
Is there some kind of reverb or something?
Yeah, so there's like the Iridium, there's a room knob on here, but I love
that one's super usable though. This one's great. Yeah.
And I think I just didn't realize what kind of this thing was trying to do until I heard this. Like, oh, okay, so that's what.
Especially when you've got like in-ears and it just opens up the space a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a very cool sound. Very cool sound.
Yep.
And then with the Tonex, right, and this one, remember it's capture. So each one, I have 3 channels I can go through in each bank. And there's like 50 banks, so it ends up being like 150 captures that you can have in here,
which is amazing.
That's
what I always wanted from Iridium 2.0 is like have like you said like the Big Sky version of that. So the thing I will say is that may not be your thing. You may
not need all that.
You may not need it all, and you may not want it all. You may just want to just have it like an amp instead of like put your pedal board down, you run it to an amp. Instead of doing that, you run it to a pedal. The UA products are fantastic for that. I will say with the Tonex, it's not just limited to electric guitar. That's another thing too. Michael Westbrook is a big Tonex guy, and he runs he tours a Crowder. He runs all of his instruments through a Tonex. If he needs a capture for his banjo, he needs a capture for his lap steel, whatever the case may be. He has them all in a Tonex, which makes it amazing for somebody like him. A multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah. And they just released, I think, to compete a little, because I think people started comparing it a little bit to like the HX Stomp. So they just released Tonex Effects. So now I can add like, it already had reverb and a compressor on here, but now in the actual like software, I can go in and add delay and trem and modulation effects and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just as a real quick note, how do I use this compared to this? Because this is a capture. This can gain up like a real amp. For the Tonex, what I do, because I have a clean capture in here, with the gain knob, I can thicken it up and loosen it, but I can't gain it like an amp.
You can't push it.
You can't
push it into overdrive.
push it into the edge of breakup or whatever.
It's just doing its best simulation of that.
Exactly. But what I ended up, this is a feature that I ended up really loving, is I have 3 settings. So in the middle is my clean amp capture. Then I have an edge of breakup capture, and then I have like an overdriven channel capture.
Nice. Yeah.
So it ends up being almost like 3 drive pedals, but it's natural from the amp. But we won't get into all that.
That makes sense, because I don't believe there's any Vox AC30 variations that have a gain switch, but you get a Friedman amp, you get a Mesa Boogie or whatever, you can actually literally run, you have any 2-channel amp, you run a pedal to your board and you're switching between your low gain and high gain channel. It's essentially simulating that.
And so
cool.
I do like that. So every bank I have on here is clean channel, edge of breakup, and then high gain. But we'll just stick with 1-to-1 for right now. Let's do one more. Let's go across the board with some gain. Let's see how they take those, and we'll take it from there. So starting with the Iridium. Rumble there. That felt good. That felt good.
Really good. Yep.
All right, so let's try the Ruby.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I kind of like the Blues Breaker side with the Iridium better.
I think
it wasn't breaking up as much with the Ruby. So I may just have to set it different.
Yeah.
But so a little bit different, but
cool.
Anyway, that's a nice drive sound.
That's a nice drive sound. Let's hear now between the Ruby and then the Tonex. Okay. So here's the blues. Tonex.
I like that. That's nice, yeah.
Let's switch.
Let's get a little more low end.
Yeah, it's a little woofier. I kind of like where the.
Yeah, I like that too. I'm gonna cut a little bit more bass out of the.
Yeah, let's do that. See if that.
That sounds nice though, right there.
And then let's see that.
We have a lot of cut on this thing too. That could be. Okay.
So let's stack both. Now to the Ruby.
I like that. It's got more than a high end.
Yeah, let's hear it again. Yeah. I feel like the Ruby in general takes the gain a little bit harder, so
yeah.
I feel like with the Ruby I have to gain it down a little bit, whereas these two feel a little bit more similar in that they
yeah.
you know.
Where is the gain on the like the volume.
Here, I'm probably about
But this
7
is
or
your
8.
low gain setting. Though,
Yeah,
right?
so this is a clean capture.
Yeah,
so this
the
is
clean capture. That's right. Yep.
Again, it's as if I was in Logic and I was adding gain post recording versus this working in this.
So it'd be like running like a preamp or something.
Exactly. So one more time, let's compare between the Tonex and the Iridium between the two. So here's the drive. Alright, what about back to the...
I feel like it's so nice. Like there's just something. I feel like it's punchier. It's punchier.
No,
that's very punchy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That feels good. It's a close call. Again, I always say this to people, like, it's easy to get lost in the weeds as guitar players. We have it in our ears. But to the average listener at a church or in a recording or whatever, they're like, I can't tell. But yeah, I think any of these are a great pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as price point goes, I
Yeah.
don't know what Iridiums are going for on like used on Reverb now. I think I want to say you could probably pick one of those up for like $200. If
that was what's the number that was in my head. How much does a Ruby?
Those are brand new. They're $399.
Okay.
Usually you can catch UA doing a deal. You can get them for as low as like $320. They'll do 20% off sales from time to time.
Got it.
And what about the Tonex?
Is it $399 or?
Yes, it is $399. But they had a sale on it.
Yeah.
Over Black Friday, I think is $299. Yeah. So that was
yes.
What a great deal! I should have gotten you one.
And I think that's what made me jump between these two. There is the same price, but this one I could do different amps for what I needed. I like the AC30 is my go-to, but I also have students, and so sometimes at the recitals I'm doing like Slipknot,
right,
and like or Metallica, and then that's on Saturday, and then Sunday I got to play in church, and then I'm back to the AC30.
Yeah, for sure, definitely a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
Well, that does it, guys. That's another episode of Tone Nerds. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys have a good idea of which one you like the best. And if you have a clear winner between these three pedals, like, drop a comment. Let us know which one, and let us know why you liked it better. Was it the sound? Was it the features? Was it something else? But nonetheless, three really cool products.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys next time.